Hello, I'm Sheila Blanco, Public Information Manager for Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools, and I am here to talk about more connections to careers, something we've been talking about a lot lately, opportunities for our students. Joining me today are Sergeant Brandon Clark and Sergeant Justin Howard. They are with the National Guard to talk a little bit about how students can receive a number of benefits. They can get college education paid for, they can get training for a career, and they can get started in a career if they choose to move forward in the military in a lot of different fields. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
You want to kick it off?
Sure. So our requirements for joining the Guard, you have to be at least 17 years old and at least a junior in high school. So if, say, we enlist a junior, they can come in and start their career immediately. As soon as they sign up, they can begin. First 2 years, they're obviously going to still be in school, but as soon as they do graduate and move on to a college education, we can start paying for that. Yeah.
So bottom line, the minimum requirements are 17 and a junior in high school. So if they're 17 and a sophomore, we still have to wait until they're a junior in high school.
Okay.
Once they enlist, their contract actually begins that day. So they'll actually start serving with us in a recruit sustainment program 1 week in a month, all the way up until they ship for training. Once they come back from their training between their junior and senior year, they'll come back, they'll belong to us. We'll still be their first line supervisor, walking them through the rest of the steps. And then they go through that second phase of training after they've graduated. So for those seniors that come in, obviously still same requirement, have to be 17, with parental consent, of course. And of course the parental consent is more, so not only do we need the parental consent, but we need the parental support, because no career aspirations, no life aspirations happen just on one front. It's a family decision. So we like to involve everybody in it regardless. So they're 18, 17 as a senior in high school. Their training is all phase 1, phase 2 right after they graduate. And then they can start reaping the benefits.
Okay. And one of the big benefits is, as you said, you can pay for college for them. And that is a huge expense for students and for their families. And that, I believe you were telling me earlier, is for any college. If they're planning to go to college in another state, they can be transferred to the National Guard unit there and receive the same type of benefits, though they may differ slightly state to state, right?
Yes, ma'am. So for the state of Georgia, we call it the service cancelable loan. Every state and territory is going to have their own version or their own potential for it. It might not all be 100%, but I know for us, Florida, a few other states locally, we're going to cover 100%. So if it's a state school, as long as it's state funded, we'll cover 100%. If it's a private school, there is a cap depending on the private school and depending on what their degree path is and all of that. But they want to go to Georgia Southern, UGA, any of the big name schools in our area, we'll cover 100%. The minimum requirements is they have to be a soldier in good standing with the National Guard, and they have to meet that minimum requirement of a 2.0 GPA. So as long as they meet that requirement at the end of every semester, they forgive the loan.
Wow.
So.
Okay. That is a huge benefit to families and to obviously the students. And you said might depend on what if they go to private or public school and what they're majoring in, but there are a lot of opportunities to continue your career in the military if they so choose, but in their career field, if they're medical, if they are going into engineering, that type of thing. Tell me a little bit about the career opportunities that you all have in the military.
So some of the things that we do locally here in the Savannah area specifically, we have several aviation units based out of Hunter Army Airfield, and then we also have an engineering battalion based out of Statesboro, Georgia, as well as a artillery unit here in Savannah.
Okay. What are some of the jobs that people may not think about in the military? I know that you all have a broadcast, a communications group in the military that I think surprise a lot of people that they can follow that career path and still do it in the military. What are some others that people might be surprised that you all have?
So there's 205 plus or minus, because they're always changing MOSs, military occupational specialties every day. So roughly 205 different jobs in the military or in the Army branches. So we've got everything from the 16 branches of commissioning that trickle all the way down. So there are 205 enlisted jobs, but there's only 16 branches that all of those fall under. So that's easier to narrow down. Everything from the legal field, the aviation field, the medical field, engineering, you've got the infantry, field artillery, ordnance, all of those things. Now, the way I like to look at it, especially for the soldier that intends to complete their degree, it's not necessarily specifically for people that want to go to school, but those are obviously the folks that we kind of focus on more so, is rounding out that resume and making sure that the job isn't so enticing that it pulls you away from what your focus is for your post-secondary education. So a lot of people get stuck in the job. They want to start, I want to go kick in doors and blow stuff up, and they forget, they lose sight of their whole plan, why they're in the first place. Everyone joins for a selfish and a selfless reason. Any military branch will tell you the same thing. They want to get something out of it, but they're also willing to give into it as well.
And by joining the National Guard, they have a certain amount of required service, and I want you all to explain the requirements for that. But it's something that's it's a weekend, it's 2 days a month or something like that. It's not they're not active duty for months at a time unless their unit gets called up, I would assume, for an emergency situation.
So a basic military contract is going to be 8 years. We call that the what is
Military
it?
service obligation.
Military service obligation. That can be broken down to a number of different ways. With us, to reap all of the educational benefits, it's going to be 6 years in an active status with the National Guard, and then 2 years in an inactive status. When they're on that active status, they will be doing their initial entry training at the beginning of their contract. During that time, they're in an active duty training status. Once they complete that, they're going to come back to the state of Georgia. We'll assign them to their unit, where their responsibility to us, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks during the summertime, unless that otherwise called upon. This past year, we've had a lot of additional duties, I guess you would call it, for the state, helping out the community, doing COVID response, testing sites, working at the food banks, things like that.
Okay. And when they go and they spend these weekends for training or the weeks for training, what does that entail? What's their average weekend going to be like?
So
does it vary?
It will absolutely vary. It depends on what their job is, what their unit is doing. Not all the way specific to them individually, but down to what their unit might be training up for, what their next mission might be. But let's say the average college student, if they're going to Georgia Southern or any of the local schools that have a cadet detachment, if they are enrolled in the ROTC program and they are a cadet there as well, they'll be in the cadet detachment for the National Guard. So their entire drill is going to be focused on those leadership skills, those leadership things that to transition them from the enlisted soldier to the commissioned soldier.
And I know, talking about leadership, that was something we talked about earlier. Even if a student has gone into a career field, they decide not to make that career their career in the military.
Exactly,
They want to leave the military once they've completed their commitment. The skills that they can put on their resume that they have earned in the military will help them going forward in any type of job search, right?
Absolutely.
How do students go about signing up to be a member of the National Guard and getting these types of benefits?
I'm glad you asked that. So the good news is that I don't want to bog folks down with them trying to think that they're qualified or disqualified. The easiest way to do it is just for us to go through the qualification process with them. So the easiest way would be to contact one of us. Can I plug the phone number?
Absolutely. We will put that on the screen.
I like it. So 912-414-6490 for myself.
912-755-0022.
All right, that's the easiest route. Now, most of them will have access to us through their guidance counselors at the school. Most of the guidance counselors in Savannah already know all of us. So all they have to do is say, hey, do you have the contact information for the Army National Guard guy? They'll hook them up with us. So.
Okay, so go to their school counselor or call those numbers on the screen.
Yes.
They can get started on the process.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, thank you both very much for joining us today. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you think it's important for our families or our students to know?
What you got?
Good.
So like I said, it is absolutely a family choice, and it's a family-supported decision. Anybody that joins the military has to have that support at home as well as that support moving forward. So we're there to walk you through the process all the way from enlistment to education and beyond. I've seen soldiers that I've put in that are currently in college, some of them that have graduated college, and now I salute them because they outrank me, all of those things. So we're here for our soldiers for the long haul, and that's kind of what sets us apart and kind of gets us the buy-in.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for your service to the country, and thank you so much for working with our students and being available to offer these types of opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you.